Hi everybody. Friday, 1 o'clock. It's still very, very hot here. Gosh, it feels very close and humid. But anyway, I hope you're had a great sales week. I hope you've got, lots of sort of things to reflect on and progress. And I really hope that you've got lots and lots of prospects and leads to be working on for the coming week ahead. But I thought it'd be a really good chance to sort of put a conversation out there in the group, because we're at the half year point, right? And you've got a good idea now whether you're going to be, sort of smashing those goals, or whether you've got to start thinking a little bit about sort of how you've set your targets to drive some of your sales activities. And, it might not just be that you're at a half-year point. It could just be that the second quarter of the year or even the last month needs for you to be thinking about, how relevant and how appropriate are your sales targets to help support your efforts. So I thought it would be good just to revisit a subject that we've spoken about in the Sales Growth Club a fair bit. But actually it's about setting the sales targets so they get smashed. That doesn't always necessarily mean just making them easy. It means making them sort of grounded in fact and reality. And I think that's the part that I want to focus in on, because setting sales targets is absolutely not an easy thing to do. And it's almost like, how can you build something if you don't know how much material you need to actually make this whole thing secure on its foundations? So one of the interesting things I observe when I talk to people in business, small business owners, entrepreneurs, even those larger corporates that I work with occasionally, is when you ask to see the sales targets, there's a bit of a shift in the chair, because really, when you look at them, they're kind of fluffy. That's a good descriptive word, and they lack substance, actually. And because of that, as a result, there's almost no direction in the target, right? So it's a little bit vague. It kind of unrealistic, maybe a little bit more unambitious, even. Because you've not gone through the process of really building them on facts. And you talk about what is the process that people use for setting targets, and it is a bit of a dark art, of course. And I'll talk in a minute about five places where I think can add some value to you. But I don't duck away from a tried and tested formula. Are your targets SMART? The specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And I've looked at a lot of different models, but this one works for me. But when I ask salespeople, business owners, are your targets SMART, they tend to roll their eyes at me, because they haven't gone through all the rigor and discipline of doing that. But I'll put something into the page a bit later, an infographic around how to set sales targets using the SMART method, and it's a nice little pocket reminder that you can keep there. But I just thought, let me run through the five areas that I like to focus on around setting sales targets. Sales targets should be set bottom up. I'll go into more detail on each of these. Data is your friend. Think small to achieve big. Make them inspiring, and set your targets so you smash them. We'll get into that one a little bit later. The first one, set sales targets from a bottom-up perspective. I mean, it's a phrase that you might have heard people talking of. You might not, but I've heard it a lot. I set your targets from the bottom up, and what that really means from me is that that's a little bit based from a reality and from a gut feeling, a doability. people do tend to work a little bit too deep and long around setting targets. So for me, is an 80% confidence level good enough? Yeah, it is. Does this feel about right? If it's about 80% right, there's no point digging any further. It should enable you to move on. So good 80% level of confidence. But within that, it should feel like a stretch. It shouldn't feel too comfy, but it shouldn't feel too tough. I mean, remember, stretch is good in your sales approach, because just delivering what you delivered last time, doesn't work on the growth key, which is generally what sales is about. If your company is about just maintenance, fine, maintaining where you are. But if it's on a growth, it's got to be a bit of a stretch. And I've already said it should be based on your current reality, your current situation. It's not about, we're going to grow 100 customers a month if actually you're currently growing 5. So ambition is really important. I talk about that in a while, but it's got to be based on your reality. If your run rate is 5 a week, then your target should probably be 6. And that's a stretch. So the first one, set sales targets bottom up. A second one, data is your friend. I mean, there's so much data now. I actually personally don't know where to start with it all sometimes. But what do I do to overcome that? It's really just find what is the key pieces of data that drives my business forward. So when it comes to target setting, the data I use is reviewing previous performance, weeks, months, and break down that history into those chunks that make sense to you, right? So if it makes more sense for you to run your business on monthly cycles, break that performance history down into monthly cycles. Don't go into the minutiae of weeks if it doesn't matter to you. But if it does, you've got that. With data, it's a nice way you can make it quite visual. I don't know how you all operate your visible management of performance. You know me, I like visual graphs, I like tables, and I think setting targets and showing proportionately how much of a target comes from this offer or this product or that product just makes it, for me, just that little bit more accessible and a little bit more real. And then the last one in this space about data is you've got to know the maths of selling. I've spoken a bit about this before, but you've got to know your metrics to be able to set your targets, right? So how many phone calls do you make to appointments? How many sales pitches do you make to quotes? How many quotes do you make to sales? These become really important metrics. And if you don't know these facts, your targets, again, aren't really based on reality. So that's the second one, data. Data is your friend. Third one, think small to achieve big. I mean, and this one really, really does work for me. I love big dreams and ambitions. I mean, I really do. The bigger, the better. But be the biggest, be the best. But then pragmatism and reality come and hit me. I want to take on the world of sales, and I want to make such a difference to the profession. But I have to be quite sensible and prudent about how I go about that, because my big goals sometimes are pretty daunting. So how do I manage goals that are big and daunting? Well, I've mentioned it a touch before. I break them down into smaller, meaningful levels and smaller tasks. So think about your targets. Can they be broken down into daily, weekly, or monthly targets? Daily is great, right? So how many prospect calls are you going to make a day? How many new contacts are you going to make when you go to that networking event on Wednesday? The yearly stuff just doesn't work for me. It doesn't translate into meaningful actions. The other thing about thinking small to achieve big, sometimes when you say I'm going to take on the world, you don't really control that outcome, right? So are your targets absolutely in your control? So is everything you're going for within your control, and you're able to actually impact upon? So that's the third one. Think small to achieve big. The fourth one here, is make them inspiring. Yeah, it's the second time I said that, but I think targets really should be taking you out of your comfort zone a bit to make you do something different, right? So this development, always developing yourself. I mean, think about what you do. I mean, and there are examples about where you can push yourself through your targets by, maybe increasing something you're uncomfortable with. Could that be, webinars? Could that be presenting? Could that be taking the spot at the networking event you go to discuss your business and the value you add? So I think that's really important. So, whilst much of this has been about targets or about numbers, and they predominantly are, but they can be about personal development and actually linking your personal development to help you deliver your goals. So the fifth one and the last one is, smash your sales targets. Now, I know that sounds really salesy and really cheesy, and I'm sorry for that, but we could just say exceed, or even if you want to meet, because if the target's relevant, just meeting it's a good result. But the key for me here is all in the planning. Do you really make the time to plan to set yourself up to make your targets? Do you know the barriers to success? Do you know the things that might prevent you from succeeding and achieving that target? Do you have the right skills? I mean, do you need to brush up on something, research something, practice something, read up on something to enhance your skills? Another one, if you set targets out there, do you put enough resources behind it? So I'm learning very, very quickly that I'm not putting enough resources behind marketing. So it's great to have the skill set, it's great to have the knowledge, it's great to have the energy, but you've also got to have, in my space, a lot more around marketing. So, think about your resources. Are they enabling you to make your targets? And the last one is an obvious one, but I'll say, do you really know your market? Do you really know not only the market, the prospects you're going after? Do you know where they operate? And you're making sure you're putting yourself where you need to be to smash your targets. So they are the 5 things that I think are important to me. Set sales targets bottom up. Use data because it is your friend. Think small to achieve big. Make your goals inspiring and go smash your plans. That's by knowing your markets, knowing your space. So as I said at the beginning, setting targets is not easy, and it's a lot easier said than done. But if you invest the right time and maybe think of some of these points, you might just set up your second half of the year for greater success as you really set meaningful, realistic, and relevant targets for your business, and if you lead a team, for your team. So I hope that helped. So that's the bit I wanted to talk about. And you just to sort of leave it out there, if this sort of interested you, you might see this on the Sales Mindset coach page. I'm the Sales Mindset coach, so that's probably why you're watching it. But I do have a group that you can join. It's a free group, so please come over and join that free group where there's a community there that we're discussing information, we're discussing topics like this, we're sharing learning. And we're really getting into some of the weeds of some of these topics. And if we're not today, we will be tomorrow, we will be the day after. So it's a great community to join. If you wanted to get a little bit more access to me on a bit of a one-on-one or one-on-many basis, I have the Sales Growth Club, which is a membership club that you can join. That's thesalesgrowthclub.com. And please just come over and sign up, and you can join and get a bit more of a personal relationship with me, fewer members in the group, and we can start having sort of much more dedicated conversations to this. Okay, enjoy your weekends, and I hope that some of you will find that of value and of use. Great stuff. Happy selling.